Really, really happy to be here in this room. Before I talk about what I do at Oxyle and our mission, which is to solve the water crisis, remove these toxic forever chemicals from water, before we get into that, I thought I'll just give you a brief introduction to myself and why someone like me decided to go on this crazy journey, co-found a company, and start treating water. We don't just wake up one day magically and start doing that. There has to be a reason which is connected to maybe your personal history or childhood. So I'll take you through a short memory path down the lane. I come from a place called Kashmir. It's in the north of India. It's a really, really beautiful place where for some of my childhood memories were always hiking in the mountains with my parents, drinking water from the tap, which was safe to drink and still is, thankfully, clean air that you can breathe, right? So these are the fondest memories I have of growing up in a community where people took the natural resources really seriously and tried to protect them, right? Unfortunately, Kashmir, by the way, it's also a place where the cashmere comes from. So if you ever wonder, that's where we're the mountain people who make cashmere, and we have really good quality water. Two things we're known for. Unfortunately, the third thing we're known for is it's a politically charged place which has been ravaged by a couple of wars in the last few years. So it was not a very stable place to grow. So my parents moved the whole family to north of India, and we moved to the capital of India, which is New Delhi. And if any of you know anything about New Delhi, or just the north of India in general, the reality of having access to water and clean air is, for me at least, was the complete polar opposite, where you just simply can't open tap water and drink from it. It is not safe. On top of that, you suffer from something like a water scarcity for a couple of months every summer. And coming from a privileged background and then discussing with my younger sister every day, do we take a shower today or do we water our plants? Like, you really had to have discussions around water rationing. So a complete polar opposite view of growing up in Kashmir and then spending my later years in New Delhi. And this thing really left an impact on me. I did not know what I wanted to do about it, but it was a sore point that I wanted to do something in the future if I could. What I wanted was not clear, but I knew this is something I would like to tackle if I had the right resources and the capabilities. When I was young, I also knew one more thing about myself, which was I love science, which is a cliche to say in this conference, but I did. I love chemistry, physics, maths, just loved them, was a nerd, couldn't help myself, right? And I knew at an early age I wanted to be an engineer. I was good at building things with my hands and using my brain to build things, using formulas in chemistry. So at the age of 17, I took a bit of a leap of faith, which was for me a bit of a leap of faith at that age. I went to UK to pursue my bachelor's. So I did a bachelor's in electrical engineering. I loved the topic, it was really cool, then worked in the industry in the UK for 2 years as well. And while working in the electronics industry, and I'm talking about 15 years ago now, so a long time ago when I was still a young child, that time this field of nanotechnology and what you could do with micro-nano systems was really fascinating. You could make smaller and smaller transistors, you could get better computing power, low heating. All the devices that we enjoy today is because we made so much advances in nanotechnology. So I wanted to learn more about that. And that is when I took a second leap of faith. So I came 12 years ago to Switzerland. And one of the best places to study micro-nano systems in the world is right here in Zurich. It's ETH Zurich. So 12 years ago, I packed my bags again after 5 years of living in the UK, and I come here. And it was an amazing experience, and I'm really grateful that I took this second leap of faith. Just the course was really great, but what I also realized when I was studying in the labs and doing my thesis at ETH Zurich was, while working with all these wastewaters, generating wastewater, doing experiments, using chemicals, pharmaceuticals, pesticides in the research, I realized all the water that my colleagues, everyone in ETH, and we are hundreds of people who work in the lab every day, all the water that we were generating had to be incinerated. So we were basically just burning this wastewater as the best way of managing waste. And that, back then, sounded crazy to me. At a university like ETH would be doing something like that. And there's a very good reason they were doing that, and I was curious about it. Why can't we just treat it properly? Why do we need to send all this water every week to be burned? And the reason was quite shocking, but also very surprising to me at that point, from the perspective that the simple reason is there are no good alternatives when it comes to treating really, really bad toxic chemicals. And the safest approach is just to burn the water and get rid of it, right? And when I talk about really crazy chemicals, these are these chemicals called forever chemicals, or scientifically they're called PFAS, so per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, right? Synthetic man-made chemicals, nature does not make anything as vicious as this. It's usually us who do these things. So it's a synthetic man-made chemical, very, very resilient. And the reason why it's so persistent is because it has these really famous carbon-fluorine bonds. So that is what distinguishes these chemicals. There are about 15,000 chemicals called PFAS today that are used every day. And they all have this common element, a carbon and a fluorine bond, and multiple ones of them, right? And why it is so problematic to have these bonds, it is the strongest bond that exists in organic chemistry. You can't break this bond. It was invented to be unbreakable, right? So if you release these chemicals into the water, into our soil, into human blood, it stays there forever. It does not disintegrate. It does not get decomposed. And that is why they're called forever chemicals, because they stay in the environment forever. And that is why when you have chemicals like this in water, you can't treat them, so you just burn all the water. And that is the best solution that we had. And you could be thinking, why would someone invent chemicals like this that are so toxic, right? Why do we need them? You'll be even more shocked to see how we use these chemicals every single day. I guarantee every single person in this room today has used multiple types of PFAS from morning getting up to coming here. It is used in our cosmetics. It is used in our, umbrellas to make waterproof umbrellas, for example, in our textiles. Anything that is grease resistant, strain resistant, heat and pressure resistant, they all have PFAS. Our Teflon pans, our computers, our cell phones, our makeup, our clothes, it's really everywhere. This carpet here, I bet you, has PFAS on it, right? So we have literally architected our whole life around these really, really nasty chemicals, but they have amazing properties, right? We enjoy them. We like going for hiking and not getting wet. We like flying. We like using our cell phones. So we are pretty much dependent on PFAS, and we simply can't just replace them tomorrow. It would be great, but we simply can't. And why it is such a big problem is because these chemicals are not just persistent and really mobile in nature, they are really toxic. Anyone who has significant amounts of PFAS in their blood, and today by stats that came out a couple of years ago, 99% of the world's population has PFAS in their blood at very high concentrations. And there's a concentration threshold above which if you have more than that amount of PFAS in your blood, people are subjected to multiple types of tumors and cancers, infertility issues, hormonal disorders. It wreaks havoc on human health. It should not be there. What's even more maybe alarming, and I'll come to the good part in a bit, but this is also really important to understand the scope of what we are dealing with, right? This map of Europe, which came out last year, so this brand new map that took 10 years to compile, tells you about the scope of the problem we are dealing with. There are more than 20,000 sites identified in Europe and US, and each of these points here represents a contamination of drinking water, our rivers and lakes, and our groundwater with concentrations that are at least 100 times higher to make them carcinogenic. So not slightly, at least 100 times higher and more. And this is really, really scary when you look at the scope of the problem, because they're very mobile, they're everywhere, and like I said, once they're there, they stay there forever, unless you somehow remove them and treat them. And to better understand how did we get here as a society, and this is what was something that was making me very curious during my master thesis, was how did we get here? Something would have gotten us here, right? And it's simply because the state-of-the-art technologies, which is basically you either burn the water, you filter the water, or you absorb the water. All of these technologies are delaying tactics. They don't completely destroy these chemicals. They just take them from place A to B and then dump them in the place B. So these chemicals never really go away. And on top of that, there are new technologies that are coming in market the last decade. They're all destruction technologies, and that, in my opinion, is the only way to solve this crisis. You need to destroy these chemicals. But unfortunately, all the destruction technologies that we have seen in the market are burdened with really high capex, really high opex, sorry, making them sort of not the best solution to go into the market and save the world, right? And that is why when I completed my master thesis, I was given this opportunity by my professor, ETH Zurich, to do a doctoral thesis. I was lucky that he told me, you could choose any topic of your choosing. Just publish some papers and don't bother me. And that was lovely to hear, right? So I'm like, I know exactly what I have to do. It was absolutely clear to me that what I wanted to focus my doctoral thesis on. So I took another leap of faith, followed my intuition, and spent the next 4 to 5 years working in chemistry labs in the basements of ETH Zurich, developing new kinds of micro-nano catalytic materials that can destroy these really mobile, persistent, and toxic chemicals from water, making sure that the solution that I wanted to develop, it had to be practical. It could be implemented. It could just not be something that stays in a lab, because who wants more of that? There are a couple of awesome solutions that never left the lab. And I wanted to make sure we don't do that. It was a really inspiring 4 or 5 years working with some of the best people in the field in this topic. I came up with a new class of materials, developed them, got them patented, had a great time, right? And then came the other inflection point. So now what? Now what happens that I know it works in a lab on a small scale. To solve the problem of the shape of the map I showed you, we need to go out. It needs to be scalable. We need to make some noise about this to be able to solve this problem. And that's basically pretty much what I did after I finished my doctoral thesis. I decided it was time that I had to give my lab coat away to more experienced people in the field, and I learned how to be an entrepreneur. And it is really the right word to use. I had to learn that. It is a mindset, but you need to know what you're getting into, right? You're getting into, you have to know how to raise funds. You have to get your first customer contracts. You have to build your first prototypes. You have to prove the tech. You have to prove no to the naysayers, and you really have to be able to scale at an operational level, right? So that's basically what I did. I took 2 years around that time, talking to my first customers, understanding what kind of product would they pay for, how much would they pay for, what is really missing for them. I worked with a lot of mentors around that time, trying to understand what kind of a company do we want to be? Are we selling a material? Are we selling a reactor? Are we selling a service? These all have implications on what kind of product are we designing, right? No one wants to design something that no one wants. It's very good to think about these things early on, and that's basically what we were doing around that time. We got our first pilots in. We got our paid pilots in. That was important. Our first prototype, and raised seed funding to basically make sure we would have at least a couple of years to test this logic out. Around the same time, we also started scaling the production of a material, because if you can't scale that, I think you should pack your bags and stay at home. Like, don't waste people's time and money if you can't scale, and take this leap of faith before you found the company is always my advice, right? And after those 2 years doing all of that and going a little bit crazy with this field of entrepreneurship, in May of 2020, so about 4.5 years ago, we co-founded Oxyle. So I co-founded Oxyle as a CEO with Sylvain, who's the CTO of the technology. It was right in the middle of COVID, so everyone was saying, you guys are crazy, but I kept looking at the map of Europe and realizing at some point we will be sitting in a room like this, as we are sitting today, without masks, without talking about COVID, but PFAS would still be here, so it had to be done. It was a risk. Everyone said, this is not the time to found a startup. There is no money. Everyone is running, but it had to be done, or so I thought. For me, it had to be done. So we founded Oxyle in 2020 with 2 people and a crazy mission. We need to solve this global crisis of PFAS. And I'm really, really happy that we did that, because what we came up with today, and I'll talk about that now with this very brief history as to why we got here, is we came up with a technology that is sustainable. It works, it's effective, and it has been proven. And it can be mass deployed for PFAS treatment. So how does the technology work? I will try to keep the chemistry really on the surface. Anyone who's interested can reach out to me. So the way the technology works is, you put this catalyst in dirty water, it absorbs all the pollutants, you activate it with really scalable energy sources like vibrations in the water, It degrades all the pollutants, and then you release clean water, which can be discharged. So absorb, destroy, release clean water. Simple principle. And the way we do that is we don't just want to supply a material to a customer and burden them with this heaviness of now taking care of water. We engineer the complete solution for them. So we up-concentrate all the dirty water, limit all dirty PFAS on the top foam, so you don't have to treat all the water, you just treat what's on the top layer. So you reduce the capex for the customers, and you reduce the space needed to treat the water. So you can actually scale this very fast. Only the top parts gets treated, every PFAS gets destroyed, and you release clean water. On top of that, we also give our customers a third element, which is real-time monitoring of PFAS, where they know with surety that they are meeting the discharge regulations, and they have the data on their hands. Water and PFAS lacks transparency. We're trying to also bring transparency into this segment by doing so. And by doing so, we give our customers not just a treatment service, we allow them to meet the future regulations by destroying all types of PFAS, not one, not two, all 15,000 types of them, because it is a non-selective treatment. Our technology is at least 15 times lower energy use than our competition in the market. It's a proven tech, we have deployed it, it works, and we help our customers avoid the CO2 emissions that are coming from burning of the wastewater. A great example of how we deploy that is here. We piloted the technology at scale last year with a Swiss customer, an industrial customer, which had contaminated the groundwater with a lot of PFAS and pesticides and all kinds of other pollutants, right? There's everything in there. So we went there for 6 months and deployed the technology and showed to the customers that we removed 99% of all the PFAS and all the pesticides and all the pharmaceuticals from the water in a stable performance without giving up on performance levels at energy values that were at least 20 times lower than what they were used to seeing. So they would be actually able to afford this in terms of an OpEx, and that was really important to show. And we haven't just done a pilot with the same customer. We are going live with the installation of a first full-scale product in 3 weeks, as we talk about. So next month, the technology that I discovered and came up with in the lab, in the span of 4.5 months, is now a product that will be installed on a customer site. And we've also gone beyond Switzerland. We're in Benelux and Netherlands region, the hotspots of PFAS. And now that this was done alone, I have the support of a great team behind what we do at Oxyle. One of the proudest things that I've done is inspired people, intelligent people from all over the world, to quit what they were doing and join this crazy mission that we have at Oxyle. And while doing so, completed 20+ projects with customers, won a couple of awards, as you mentioned, raised more than 12 million in funding, and treated more than 1 million liters of PFAS-contaminated water. And it will take a little bit more than just Oxyle being on the ground to solve this crisis. We need the legislation to be stricter. We need public awareness, people like you fighting for better regulations, buying products that are sustainable, and holding people accountable. And of course, giving incentives in terms of regulatory fines or incentives in terms of monetary compensations to the polluters who are polluting so they do the right job of implementing better solutions. And just to conclude this really long speech now, if there is something I could leave you today with, something that I learned and I wish someone taught me at an earlier age, was always follow your gut, especially for us ladies. Our intuition is a superpower. It's there to protect us, it's there to challenge us, and it's there for us to get out of a comfort zone. So please always follow your gut over the voices of other people. Look out for people who you find inspiring as your mentors. And if you would like to see a change that you don't see in the world today, there is a very, very, very good chance that you can be that change. Entrepreneurship is a mindset. You can do that by finding your startup. You can do that in your community, in your family, in the job you have today. So if you see a need for change, I hope we all can rise up to that and make it happen and make it an opportunity for good for ourselves, for our communities, and for our planet. And with that, thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'm around, so you can find me.
Amazing. Thank you, Fajer.
Thank you.
And yes.